Hello, it's AK here, and today we're going to be adding more staging elements to the venue drawing. We'll start with some risers and stage decks, and then we'll also quickly touch on how to create decks if they are in awkward or abnormal shapes. And then we'll look at adding some steps and ramps, and just ways to get up onto the decks. Okay, and once all this is done, we can add in a couple of lighting ladders just to give us a little bit more flexibility on where we can hang our lights. Okay, so let's go. Okay, over here in Vectorworks, before we get into dropping in the decks, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw in a horizontal line. And I want to switch over to the production deck layer over here, and we're going to draw a line using the center mode, and we're going to draw the line from here and come out this way, maybe to 5,000 or so. Okay, what this does is it gives me a reference point for when we turn off the overhead layers. Okay, and right now we can actually turn off the production overhead layers, and this is what we're going to be working with. So we can go ahead and start dropping in some decks. Okay, it's not very difficult. It's under the event design toolset. If you scroll down, you can see that there are 4 stage deck and plug related tools over here. The one that we want is the stage deck tool. So I'm going to select this guy, and using the left side as a reference point, I'm just going to drop it over here. You can see that the outline of the deck appears when I'm mousing over the workspace. The idea is the same as most tools on Vectorworks. Click once to place, and move to get rotation, and click one more time to fix the rotation. Okay, we're just going to add in a couple more. Switching over to the other side for the other side. Okay, and there we go. We got a couple of decks. Okay, if you look at this in an isometric view, you can see that Vectorworks has done a really good job of rendering out a 3D model of the deck for us. Just like any of the other plugin objects in Vectorworks, you can modify the attributes of any of these plugins. Okay, so we're going to select this deck over here, and we're going to look at the object info palette over here. Okay, you can see that by default it's a rectangular deck shape. You can change it to a round shape if that's what you want. For us, we're going to keep it as a rectangular shape. You can also see that it's got a height, depth, and width over here. These are currently set to 4 by 8 feet. I'm going to set it to a height of 800 millimeters and a depth of 1000 with a width of 2000. So a typical 1 by 2 deck. Okay, you can also see that there is an option here to change the structure. We can use it in a basic leg structure, or you can have braced legs if you need them to be taller. You can have folding legs, so it looks a little bit like your banquet stage deck. Just a deck with nothing underneath. Or you also have a border, which is your skin, vinyl skin around the side, or a simplified box just to represent a different height in a space. For us, we are going with the rectangular legs option. So this is what we want. Okay, if you scroll down a little further, you also have the option to modify the top thickness of the deck. This is the hard portion over here. By changing the trim height, you can change how much of the deck is the top. So if I were to change it to 300, you can see that the top becomes thicker and thicker. Yes, it looks a little bit unrealistic, but I guess for this particular example, it's best to keep it at 150 mm. Okay. If you scroll down further, you also have the option to add casters if you want your deck to be on wheels. And some venues around the world have, or rather most venues around the world have safety requirements for when the deck is above a certain height, you need to have railings or kick rails to prevent people from falling off. So for that, we have an integrated option over here. You can add a little tow rail at the front, and you can add a full-fledged box at the back, okay, for safety reasons. And you can also have a straight guide on the left and on the right. Okay, so it gives you the flexibility to modify your railings one at a time, so you can mix and match to get the look that you're going for. For me, I'm gonna just leave them open for now. We'll add in the safety railings and kick rails once we have the big picture together. Once you are done with your deck, be sure to scroll down all the way to classes and assign default classes with prefix. And then once you're done with the default classes, scroll back up, go to class. I'm going to create a new class under production. So this is going to be production staging deck. Okay, and that completes one deck for me. So to build out my stage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my top view. I'm going to get rid of these that I dropped in for fun, and I'm going to move this guy over here. And then with the option drag, which is the duplicate function in Vectorworks, I'm just going to hold option and drag this out. Okay, and quickly I'm going to do up a 4x4 stage deck. Okay, so looking at this in an isometric view, you can see that we have a 80 centimeter tall stage deck. For the purpose of being safe, I am going to select these 4 decks at the back and drop in a tow rail at the back, just to be safe. Okay, so all this is good and well if you are doing a deck which is made out of symmetrical squared out shapes, but sometimes it's not that ideal, and when that happens, we want to have the flexibility of creating custom shaped decks, and we can do this easily using the stage plug tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the top plan, and I'm going to get rid of these 2 decks, and we're going to have a triangular wedge over here to taper off the edges of the stage. So using the stage plug tool, I'm going to make sure that I'm in the first option, which is the polyline mode, and we're going to click 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, once you are done, the object preferences appears. Specify a stage height, and we're going to move the classes over to default classes as well, and hit OK. Okay, so what this will do is it will create for me a piece of triangular stage deck. Okay, so we're going to do that again for the other side. Same thing, stage plug tool. Make sure you're in the polyline mode. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, because I already specified my settings the first time, it's not going to ask me for the settings again. But if you do need to modify anything, the functions are the same as any other plugin objects. So while in your top plan view, I'm going to go over to the stage plug tool, and I'm going to use the third option over here, okay, which is cubic vertex mode. We're going to start from this corner over here at a 30-degree angle, and we're going to go back here and double click to finish the shape. Okay, so you can see that I get a very nice front end for my stage over here. Can look at it this way, but what's wrong is my front end of the stage doesn't have legs. So visually it will look a little bit awkward, but once you skin it off and mask it off, it's something that you can work around. Once you are done with the shape, remember to scroll down and once again go to classes and assign the default classes with prefix to everything. Okay, and just to round it all off, I'm going to go back to my top plan view. I'm going to select all of these one more time and make sure that they are in the correct production staging deck container class. Okay, this is to make my own life easier later on when I'm doing my housekeeping or when I need to turn things off and on. Okay, so you can see that we have a very nice stage here at the moment, but there's no way to get up onto the stage safely. So we're going to add a couple of steps, and steps are very similar to the stage deck itself. Just select the tool from over here, make sure that you are in the middle insertion point mode over here, and pick your first point to place the steps, and then move to rotate the steps whichever way you want, and click again to place the steps. Okay, they can be really customized in many ways and it's quite interesting. So we're going to look at it in 3D. Okay, and under your object info palette you can see that there is a way to change the structure of the steps from self-adjusting to a frame freestanding. It can also be a solid freestanding, or it can be an open freestanding, or a simple stair module. Again, for this particular example, we're going to go with a frame freestanding. If you look further down in the settings, you can see that there is the option to change the height of the stage. In this case, it's assuming the stage height is at 800 millimeters, so it's giving me a stair module that reaches up to 800 millimeters. You can change the width. I'm going to set this to 1000 just to match the width of my stage. You can change the number of steps, and you can also add a step at the top of the stair module to match up with the stage. So one thing to note about this is this additional step doesn't get included in this 6 over here. So if you want a 4-step stair module and you choose to add a top step over here, then you want to make sure that your number of steps is 3 steps. So that would give you a very nice 200 millimeter climb from step to step. Okay, and additionally you also can change the single step depth. So for me, I want each step to be 250 millimeters. It can be longer or shallower depending on your preference. And similar to the stage deck plugin object, you can also change the thickness of each step. And zooming in a little bit more, if you want to change the type of tubing that's used for the stair module, that's also possible. It can be round tubing, it can be square tubing, or by default it's an octagonal tubing. And lastly, with regards to safety, you can add a railing on the left or on the right, and you can change the height of the railing as well. Same idea, you can also change the profile from octagonal to tube or cube. Okay, whichever style works best for you. Once again, remember, once all this is good and done, go over to classes and assign the default classes with prefix to everything. Hit OK and make sure that you are in the correct container class. Okay, so there you go, we have a very nice stair module over there. Okay, to finish this off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this stair module, and using the mirror tool, which is over here, I'm going to mirror it across to the other side. Okay, so that way we have a stair module on both sides of the stage, and that completes the stair, and that completes the stage steps tool. So moving on to the RAM, before we go into the tool specifically, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this stage deck over here, because that's where my RAM is going to go. So I'm going to select the stage RAM tool from over here. Again, using the middle insertion point. Same idea, first click to place, second click to rotate. I'm going to place it over here. The object preferences will open. Again, we're just going to leave it alone, press OK, and let it render. And then we're going to look at it in the isometric view. You can see that a RAM has been created for us. The options here are exactly the same as with a stage deck or with a stage steps module. We can change the top height to get the RAM to end higher or lower than the stage, and we can also change the structure of the RAM. It can be just a RAM, it can be a solid structure, it can be a truck RAM, or it can be a simple basic RAM. Again, in this case, we're just going to go with RAM only. And if we scroll down further, you see that there is an option to change the ramp length. And as you would expect, as you change the ramp length, the inclination of the slope becomes more aggressive or more gentle accordingly. So if you want it to be a really short ramp, you can halve the length, and you can see that this is a very steep 40-degree ramp. The idea is with ramps, you want it to be a safer and easier way to get up onto the stage. So 40-degree is not a very nice inclination. So what we can go with is something a lot more gradual, just to make sure that it's safer and easier to get up onto. Once you are satisfied with the length, you can scroll down a little further to add in your safety railings. I'm going to add in a railing on the left over here, and I'm also going to change my parts classes to default classes. Because you notice that this kind of blocks off this area for me, I'm also going to select this guy, and I'm going to add in a railing at the back and a toe railing on the right, just to cover all bases and be safe. This one should be on the left. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing over here. This should be a right side toe railing. So that gives me a very nice stage deck with very good accessibility features, and we can now move on to the lighting ladders. Looking at the plan view, and with the intention of inserting in our lighting ladders, the first thing that we're going to do is get rid of this extra reference line, which we don't need anymore. And once that's out of the way, I'm going to once again make sure that all of this is in the correct class. So we want them to be in production staging deck. And once that is done, we can turn on the production overhead layer, and we can gray out the production deck layer because we're not going to need that anymore. Be sure to switch over to the production overhead layer, and then we can get into adding in our lighting ladders. One more thing that might make our life a little bit easier while we're doing this is if you were to go into your classes and you were to turn off your perimeter drapes, it'd be a little bit easier to look at what exactly it is that we're doing with the ladders. In this venue, in reality, there are no lighting ladders. So what we're doing is simply for the purpose of giving us options when we are working on the drawing and to explore the tool a little bit more. You can find the lighting ladders under the rigging tool set. It's the second tool over here. I'm going to click on this guy, and I'm going to zoom in over here, and I'm just going to place him for now over here, and I'm going to rotate him 90 degrees. The idea is the same. First click to place, second click to rotate. Once you are done, the object preferences opens up. We're not going to look at this for now. We're just going to hit OK, and you can see that the ladder has appeared. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this to kind of line up with my truss over here, and I'm going to look at this in an isometric view. Okay, you can see that my ladder is over here. Okay, and just for the purpose of exploring and working, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this guy up to a height of 4,000 millimeters. Okay, if you were to look at this space from the side, and you were to use the tape measure tool, which is over here in your basic tool set, you can see that the grid is approximately 6 meters from the ground. So when you say you want this to be 5 meters from the ground or 4 meters from the ground, what you're actually specifying is the midpoint of the ladder, not the top or the bottom of the ladder. Okay, we're going to look at this in an isometric view, and we're going to just quickly scroll through the options that we have over here. I want a rotation of negative 90. I might have messed up a little bit over there. You can change the width of the ladder. In this case, I want it to be 1 meter. And you can also change the height of the ladder. I want this to be a 2 meter long ladder. There is also an option for you to change the number of rungs. So assuming you want this to be a 2 meter long ladder, and you want your rungs to be at 500 millimeters apart, then this would be a 4 rung ladder. If you are not very happy with the evenly distributed rungs, you can also specify custom rung spacings, and that kind of makes things more flexible or more creative for you if you need that level of flexibility. For me, I'm just going to go with 4 rungs, and I'm going to have the whole structure be 2 meters long. Okay. You can also specify other details like the weight of the ladder. This comes in useful if you are using Braceworks. For me, that's not the case, so I'm just going to move along. And you have some other finicky little details that you can specify regarding the render profile of the ladder, the way the ladder is drawn in 2D, etc. etc. Okay, if you need it to be a square or if you need it to be a hexagon, you have those options over here. If for some reason you want your ladder to be an E ladder where there's only one vertical pipe, you can also specify that, and it will modify the model accordingly. We're going to keep it really simple, so it's going to be both sides, and those are the settings that I'm going to change for now. The last thing that I want to do is use my standard classes. So same idea, default prefixes here, other prefix rigging pipes. I'm going to hit OK, and it will create its own class structure for the components. And the last step would be to drop this into a new class. I'm going to put this into production, staging letters. Okay, and finally, to make it look like it's hung off from the truss structure, I'm going to move this up to a Z height of 4800, so it looks like there's a small bit of a drop from the truss, which is sort of what you get if you're using a round sling to do a drop. And there we go, we have one ladder. Okay, to copy this over to the other side, it's nothing new. I'm just going to use the mirror tool, and we're going to draw in a mirror line over here. That gives me 2 ladders, and then I'm going to select both ladders, and using the move my points tool, I'm going to move this from here to here, and I'm going to do one more over here. So this helps me to quickly duplicate my ladders, and just in case anybody actually got stuck with the move by points tool, what I was doing is I had the object retention mode on, so it doesn't delete the original object, it just duplicates the object. So with that done, if I will go back into my classes and layers and turn on the rest of my initial classes and layers, and if I were to look at this in an isometric view, you can see that the stage is taking shape, and we can soon move on to adding in speakers and eventually lights, and perhaps the video wall and other camera elements as well. So there you go. So there you have it. We have a venue that is almost complete staging wise. We can move on to dropping in some speakers and maybe a line array, a bit off for this particular venue, but we can try. And then we can move on to lighting and video and build it up from there. So that's all for now. Bye.